Hi, this is Eti Elkis.
And this is Karen Cohen.
And we are Yentas in the city. Karen, today we have Joshua Avishur, who is very special to us. He's a friend. Before we start the interview, I would like for you to tell our listeners a little bit about Joshua.
Yes, Joshua Avishur was an Orthodox woman married with 4 children and at one point decided to become an Orthodox Jewish man. We'll be interviewing Joshua today and discussing with him the psychological, social, and emotional components that came with his transition. Hi, Joshua. Welcome to Yentas in the City.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Josh.
Great to see you and have you here. And I just wanted to tell you before we start our interview, if at any point you feel uncomfortable with any of the questions, please let us know and we'll be happy to move to the next question. Also, right now, I'd like to ask you if you could tell our listeners in a nutshell your life from childhood to adulthood and your journey transitioning from a woman to a man.
In a nutshell, young kid, gender bending from the get-go, trying to be a boy, stealing my brother's clothes, always on the sports teams, on the soccer teams, the only girl amongst an entire field of boys, and very comfortable that way. Had really long hair, cut it off when I was a little one, and then my mom made me grow it out. I cut it again towards the end of high school. At that point, puberty was rampant and terrible. I hated it. It changed me from somebody who could possibly pass to somebody who could not pass. And I just wished that my chest would go away. I was still gender bending all the way through high school. Everybody always considered me a tomboy. By the end of high school, I was only wearing men's clothes. I did not grow up religious. So that wasn't necessarily an issue. We went to a public high school at the end. And so I was wearing only men's clothes. And then I went to UC Santa Cruz for college. And was astounded by the different versions of female-bodied people. Had never seen anybody else that looked somewhat like me, other than me. I thought that made me a lesbian. Never used that word because it didn't feel right. And so I called myself a dyke. Or a butch, something like that. And then in my second year somewhere, I found the word transgender in some of the literature that we were reading for class. And that was when the skies opened up and the angels were singing and everything just went into place. Suddenly my thought process opened up to the concept that there was something that fit me. I understood it immediately, and it made my whole life make so much more sense. I came out as trans, was also trying to be Orthodox at the same time. In Santa Cruz, that wasn't very possible. There was no Orthodox synagogue at the time. But so I davened, I tried to keep as kosher as I could. After college, I moved back down to be with my mom in Los Angeles, in Calabasas and the Orthodox organization over there, and became close with the rabbi, and his family realized that it's not possible to be trans and Orthodox. I believed that what the rabbi was telling me, that I could pray it away, was possible. I did that. I believed I cured myself, and I got married. I had 4 children, and I thought I was okay for a while. I had 4 kids pretty quickly, and that is that's enough of a load on any parent, especially the female parent. So I didn't have a moment to think about myself in any way whatsoever. You know, you can't go to the bathroom by yourself, and you can't eat by yourself, and you can't do anything by yourself. You forget who you are. So by the time my oldest was around 13, 14 years old, and the youngest was about 7, I realized this wasn't working. Something was not right. I realized that I was still trans, and I came out to my husband. He wanted a divorce. I transitioned after my son's bar mitzvah because I wanted to see him laying in shul. I want to read the Torah. I wanted to see him because we were an Orthodox synagogue. That wasn't going to work if I had transitioned. So I had to wait until after that. I did. I transitioned in 2016. The Orthodox community in the Valley basically dropped me, and I've been working on trying to make community in the LGBT world, the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer world, making an Orthodox group for us queer people, and connecting with people who across the states who identify in the same way that I do. And then just trying to live as best as I can, as true to who I am, and as honest as I can be.
Wow. Josh, what a story.
The journey.
So many details that we want to fill in and we want to find out about. But I know that the first thing that often, when someone goes, I'm transgender, the first thing that comes to people's mind is the aspect of sexuality. I'm sure people get stuck on the question like, do you have genitals? How do you have sex? And people often feel very, they call you whatever they want, whatever pronoun they want. And even when you correct them, they still think that as whatever bisexual you were born as. So even if you correct them and you go, no, this is not the way you should approach me, this is not what you should call me, they feel very comfortable just, telling you, identifying you the way they want. So I'm sure people ask you those questions that could be very hurtful and seem ignorant, but I feel that the majority of people are just not informed. So I would like, before we start the interview, to ask you, what do you identify as and what is your sexual orientation? And explain to our listener, what does that mean? Because a lot of people don't know the difference. So before we continue, I really want our listeners to know the difference between the two.
Okay. Please forgive me. Also, my blood sugar's a little bit on the low side, so I may have to drink some juice. But
Okay.
So I identify as a transmasculine person. I don't usually say man. I don't say I'm a man because that has a whole lot of different connotations. And yeah, so I identify as transmasculine or transgender, and my sexuality is completely and totally separate. They do not go together in any way. The way that I try to explain it to people is gender is about who you are when you are in bed, and sexuality is who you go to bed with. So they are not the same at all. They happen to be under the same umbrella group for all LGBTQ people because we're all different in the same vein. I'm not going to go into that. Anyhow, so I'm transmasculine, and I also identify as queer because sexually I am attracted to masculine people, but what's in their pants doesn't matter to me.
Can I ask you something about that?
Yeah.
You say you're attracted to masculinity.
Yeah.
So some people hearing that would say, why would you transition? If you're attracted to masculinity, then that would, when you were a female, you would have been attracted to a man to masculinity. So could you explain that?
I think that's what the difference is, I think.
No, I want to hear from Joshua.
Sure. I mean, I am not comfortable being seen as a female. If I was dating a masculine person who could have been assigned female at birth or male at birth, that part is not the issue for me. But I do not want to be somebody's girlfriend. I'm not comfortable being somebody's girlfriend. I'm not comfortable being addressed as a female person. So it doesn't matter who I'm in bed with. If I'm not comfortable with who I am and how I present, I'm not going to go and have a romantic relationship with somebody just because that's what, society thinks is the way to go.
So right now you would date a man or a woman. It doesn't really matter to you as long as you feel comfortable with the way you look right now. Is that correct? Would I be correct?
I'm not attracted to women. I'm attracted to masculinity. So if somebody is identifying as female, then there's a female energy there that is not attractive to me. It's wonderful as a friend, but it doesn't do anything for me. So if there is another person who was also born female, assigned female at birth is how it's often termed right now, but they also identify as a very masculine person, that's fine. That works for me. That's interesting. And, but.
Wow.
So that's the gender versus sexuality part. They are not the same.
The same.
Because who I am with romantically has nothing to do with who I am and how I feel about myself in the world. One of the things that you mentioned, Etty, quickly is genitals. And though I'm not particularly uncomfortable with those questions, the vast majority of trans people would be very upset if somebody asked them, what do they have in their pants?
I don't blame them. I do not blame them. And but you know what? The reason I mentioned it is because that's the first thing that people ask. Oh, what did they do with this? What did they do with that? And just like you wouldn't ask, nobody would ask me, what do you have down there? I wouldn't ask anybody else. I just wanted, because I wanted to bring something, because I know our listeners, that's the first thing that will come to their mind when we say this story. We wanted you here because of the depth of your story, but I think a lot of people, so I wanted to cover that area before we move on to what Karen and I thought was important and what we wanted to bring out of the show. So that's why I wanted that out of the way. So.
Yeah. Oh, you froze. I'm glad you brought it up because it is the first thing that people ask when they think about trans people or gay people. And if you wouldn't ask, the person next to you, unless they're really close to you, what they're doing in bed, then don't assume it's about that you can ask about a gay person, right?
So that's what you're saying. Basically, whatever you would ask a heterosexual person is what you want to be asked. The same courtesy, correct?
Correct. Heterosexual or cisgender, CISGENDER. That's a term now that describes somebody who identifies with the gender they were assigned at birth.
Okay. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria refers to the distress and the unhappiness caused by one's gender. People with this condition often feel that their gender does not match their biological characteristics. I would like to explain to our listeners that gender dysphoria is not the same as gender nonconformity, which refers to behaviors not matching the gender norms or stereotypes of the genders assigned at birth. Examples of gender nonconformity, for example, would include girls behaving and dressing in ways more socially expected of boys, or occasional cross-dressing in adult men. Gender nonconformity, by the way, is not a mental disorder, whereas gender dysphoria is actually listed in the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual. And I wanted to ask you, Joshua, How do you feel about this? Do you feel that you were suffering from gender dysphoria? And what would you say to people who feel that it's a mental illness?
Well, that's an interesting question, because, and looking at it from now my 1 year of Master's in Social Work program, in order to get services, in order to get medical help, a person must be labeled as having gender dysphoria. They need that medical diagnosis, even if it's not, even if it shouldn't be, you know, even if it's not it's not uncomfortable, it's not a mental disease, there's not anything wrong with me, you know, like there's nothing wrong with gay people in that same idea, right? There's nothing inherently mentally ill about me, or any other trans person. So in that vein, gender dysphoria, I don't think it belongs in the DSM. I don't think it belongs as a mental illness. But in order to get the medical...
Do you find it insulting?
It's a good question. No, insulting isn't the word. It's, I can't think of it. I can't think of the word, but it's akin to like criminalizing something that isn't criminal. I can't think of the word, but that describes making somebody look mentally ill when it's not.
When they're not.
But I can't think of the word to describe that. Wow, I lost my train of thought. I definitely had what would be considered a gender dysphoria. I was diagnosed with gender dysphoria. And I was comfortable having that diagnosis because I knew that meant that the doctors would be willing to help me feel less gender dysphoric by having top surgery, which is the double mastectomy. And being able to take hormones, which helped my facial structure and some muscle development and my voice drop. So I definitely had gender dysphoria. I was very uncomfortable with my body. I don't think it belongs in the DSM. There was another part of your question, Karen, but I can't recall. It was something about gender non-conforming versus transgender, but I don't remember what the actual question was.
Yeah, I just made it a point to show the difference between the two.
Right, like a tomboy.
And gender dysphoria.
Right, like the easiest example is a tomboy, right?
That's why I said some people, just because they dress a little more masculine, or, you know, it doesn't mean
that they're right.
It doesn't mean that they want to change their biology. They're
not ready to transition and change their anatomy, but they just feel comfortable wearing more masculine clothing.
Right. They may not ever want to. I mean, there are some effeminate men, some who are heterosexual and a lot who are homosexual, who are gay, who are very happy being male and being in male-male relationships. But they just don't, you know, they want to dress in pink or, you know, and frilly things, but it doesn't change how they present to the world.
Josh, you told me that prior to getting married, when you were still single, you went to some rabbis, they tried to kind of quote unquote help you. And you said that they told you that you should pray it away. And in a way, it's very nice because I think that the rabbis were they thought they were trying to help you. But then you got married. And the reason I have a problem with it, I see a lot of young kids right now, some that I know, some that I hear about, that are gay and they're in the Orthodox community. And instead of the community accepting that there are gays, there are transgender, there are lesbians, they try to like fix them and fix who they are. And their way of thinking, if we don't address it, it doesn't exist, we can convince them. Then, and they knew you before you got married. Were some of those rabbis at your wedding, the one that told you prayed away?
Both of them.
The ones that told you prayed away. So they knew your situation before.
Yep.
And did they know, so they came to the wedding, they knew that before. Didn't they think as rabbis that they are kind of deceiving the other side, not just you, but the other side of the family? Because,
well, I think that probably what they meant by praying it away was that everybody has a Yetzer Hara. What that is inner demons that we as individuals fight. Things are placed before us, difficult situations, and we have to fight this inner inclination that is
your challenge.
Yeah, your inner challenge, exactly. And I think that's probably what the rabbis meant by that. And, not just sexuality is something that people have to fight as an inner demon, but even food. Food is like the number one Yetzer Hara.
We both know it.
Hello? Chocolate, food, correct? Are we correct here?
That's my Yetzer Hara. But Karen, see, that's something that bothers me, because I think Yetzer Hara means that there is something bad about coming out. And I think the biggest deception is deceiving yourself. If you are gay, and I understand the rabbis, don't get me wrong, they were trying to help. From where they're coming from, they're doing the right thing. For them, it was the right thing to do. They didn't do it because they're evil. They didn't do it because of anything. They did it because they thought it's the right thing to do. But that being said, I think the worst thing that anybody can do to themselves is not live the life that they feel comfortable. It's funny because my daughter
I see your point, but they're coming from a religious perspective, a biblical perspective. That's why they're taught, that's their thought, that's how they're trained. So
but I have a problem with
it. To fight these things.
Right, but I have a problem because what they did is Joshua knew who he was, and I can understand if the beginning they talked to him about it, but trying to kind of prayed away and just fixing Joshua, and then they come to a wedding with Joshua. Obviously, they knew he does not feel comfortable with who he is, and they dance the hora, and they're having a party, and then, and then he gets married and he has kids. And if we had places in the community that are saying, you know what, we are not all the same. There will be some gay people, there will be lesbian, there will be transgender. Let's accept them for who they are and try to work around it. And I'm not saying giving up what Judaism is and not accepting certain things and, working around it. But the fact that trying to pray it away later on can hurt families.
So what I think you're saying is really, while Joshua, you may say you lost to your Yetzer Hara, you obviously feel you won the battle because you were true to yourself. Is that correct?
I would never call it a Yetzer Hara.
Right. Okay, so what would you call it?
We have to stop that, because I don't think that's a fair characterization.
So what would you call it?
What would I call my being transgender?
No, when they said pray it away and we talked about the inner.
They called it a challenge. They called it a nisayon. But I'm not fair. I'm not comfortable having it characterized as a Yetzer Hara.
Right. And I agree with you 100%.
But
and I have a problem.
You obviously are correct. You feel like you won the battle against your challenge because you were true to yourself. Is that correct?
I wouldn't call it no, because there are no winners in a war. everybody loses. And in this particular case, everybody did lose. There was so much pain on all sides, and it wasn't fair, and it wasn't okay that they did that, and that they tried to convince me of that. I understand where they're coming from, and I understand that they had, their ideals and their beliefs, and from where they were coming from, I don't blame them. But what they did was not okay, and it's part of all of Orthodoxy not being able to see that this is not something you can change. It's not like a taiva for food or chocolate. It's not the same. And so, for them, one of them actually compared it to, I don't remember what the comparison was, but it was similar to going on a diet. That he wanted me to become a girl and live my life as a girl because it's as easy as going on a diet or as hard as going on a diet. And I'm sorry, but people do not commit suicide because of a diet. People do not want to die because they can't live without chocolate.
Right.
So what they did was wrong. And anybody who considers that type of conversion therapy is not doing anything of service to anybody. And people have known for generations that you can't change gay. It's not changeable. It doesn't work. But they still keep trying.
And that's where I have the problem, because I personally have a problem with it, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on the show, is for kids that are going through what you're going through, to show them that, not just them, but also the community and people around us, that this is something that we really need to address, because now not only did you get hurt, the children, I know your children, I know they accept you and they love you and adore you, all your kids. But that being said, they had to go through a very big change in their lives. They were part of an Orthodox community. It was not easy on them. It was not easy on your spouse. It was not easy. And you know what? You could have still had children, and you could have still had a family, but they would be born to it. They would be born to a situation, and when you're born to a situation, is a lot different than growing up a certain way. And just so you know, Joshua, I know you for many years. I know you when you were a woman, and
me too.
You did not look happy. You both Karen and I remember when I was working in school, you looked very sad. I just didn't know you well enough. And then when I met you after the transition, you're a much happier person. You might still be struggling with issues, family and, things that took place with the transition. But I can see what you mean when you finally felt that you're yourself, because you see it from the outside as your friends, that you're a lot more comfortable as a person. And I think that's more important than anything in the world, is for somebody to feel good. Because if you don't feel good, you cannot let anybody around you feel good. I'm proud of you, personally. And so is Karen. So, Karen,
I wanted to ask you, what would you say was the scariest and hardest part of your transition so far? And now that you're an Orthodox man, how are you accepted by the community?
Well, two very different questions. The scariest part was coming out to people. I came out to individuals, the people that were closest to me first, like months beforehand. And yeah, I mean, it was so intense to know that, even if they say they're still gonna like me and take care of me and all that sort of stuff, that 6 months later, when I transitioned, it wasn't gonna be that way. I think like every time I took a step towards being more of myself, like going into the local kosher supermarket without a hat on my head, and so showing that I had a kippah on, that was very scary. So any situation where I put myself at risk for not being accepted, every first time I did that was very scary. And in this community, I'm not accepted. Where I live in the Valley, in Valley Village, North Hollywood, I am not accepted by the vast majority of people. Some people outright hate me.
Oh my God.
And people have told me not to come around their homes because they don't want their children to see me. I have been disinvited from people. I'm not allowed in shul. I'm not allowed in any of the shuls around here.
When you say you're not allowed in any of the shuls, they actually said to you, please refrain from coming to our synagogue, and
they did that in words of omission, meaning I would ask, can I come back? Can I come into shul? And the person would write back, oh, you have such a good question, let me get back to you, and then never get back to me. And in other such ways, I finally was able to get into one tiny little Orthodox Sephardic shul for Rosh Hashanah this past year, but I was told very specifically, stand in the back, do not be friendly, do not shake anyone's hand, make sure that you do not have any contact with anybody. And that was a shul that I had never been in, and had nobody knew me. So
did you have a good friend prior, when you were a woman, did you have really close-knit friendships as couples?
Yes, both as couples and singularly.
Yeah.
So they kind of, when you came out, the majority of your friends just never spoke to you again and never called you?
Not when I came out, but when I transitioned. Except some people, when I came out to them, were like, okay, we're done, right? You can't come over.
Oh my God.
And then when I transitioned, the rest of the people were done.
See, I think that goes against everything that is beautiful about Judaism. Really. And I know that a lot of people are going to get mad at me when they see this show. But you know what? It's horrible. It's flat out disgusting to me. I think, there is a difference between somebody's character and somebody's sexuality. So if you went and you killed someone, or you're a thief, or you lack character, and people disconnect from you, is one thing. But I know you personally, and you're such a wonderful human being. And for people to just, because you came out, we don't want anything to do with you. Well, you know what? You're better off, because they were never true friends. Really, because I can tell you one thing. I personally, and I know Karen, we've been friends for 36 years. There is nothing my friends can do, that especially if they're good friends, that will make me tell them, I cannot be friends with you because right now you're a man or a woman. It's flat out disgusting. I think it's teaching our kids, they're giving our kids the wrong method, because Judaism is about loving everyone and loving your friend like you love, right now on the benches. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. And you know what? We have somebody in the family who came out, as gay. And I was very proud of my mom, because my mom is very conservative. And one of her friends came up to her And they said, oh, do you know everything about your grandkid? Do you know everything about your grandkid? And my mom, who is very conservative, I was so proud of her. When he came out, he came to my mom's house, and he says, I have to tell you something, Safta. And my mom said, you know, what do you have to say? And he said, you know, I have to tell you I'm gay. She goes, oh my God, I thought you were going out with the Goya. So and this is a true story. And then when a friend started to hint to her, and I know it was hard for my mom. It was not an easy thing for my parents. But she said, you know what? I really don't care who you are. You're a good person, and you're a better person than any heterosexuals that I know. And, you know, when her friends approached her, she just flat out blew them off and told them what, and I give her a lot of credit to do that. And I think that's the way everybody should be.
Did you feel supported by your family when you came out and when you transitioned?
Yeah, thank God. For my biological family, yes. My mom would not let anyone take care of me after surgery. She insisted on doing absolutely everything, even though I had a bunch of complications. She hand and foot, you know, just did absolutely everything. My brother and his family all did the transition right away.
You have a brother who's a rabbi also, correct?
He's an Orthodox rabbi in Teaneck, New Jersey. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He's the Judaic studies principal of one of the boys' high schools.
He's been very supportive of you, from what I understand.
Extremely, extremely supportive. And I love them, and they love me. And, you know, he instructed his kids immediately to call me Uncle Joshua. And his kids took to it immediately. Even his in-laws, on the day of my surgery, when I got out, they called me and asked me, you know, is Joshua there? Like it was very heartwarming and a lifeline, because without that, I would have not gone very far.
Mm-hmm.
Did any rabbi accepted you for who you are?
There's a rabbi in the city, modern Orthodox rabbi, who accepts me for who I am.
And you can go to their shul or no?
I do. Before Corona, I went there like twice in a month. I mean, I'd go there often if I can.
And people treat you very well?
Very well.
And
just
you sit in
like
the
any
main
other guy.
just like one of the guys there. That's amazing. I actually hope there will be more places like that and people can talk. Now, did people ever tell you why they didn't want you next to the kids? They thought like it will rub on them? I mean, like, what was the reason that they gave you? Like, let's say your best friend or somebody that you were very close to. Did they explain why they don't want to be your friend? Were they afraid that if they become your friend, they'll be tinted by the community?
No, they just started giving me the cold shoulder really immediately. And making a point of having a relationship with my ex as opposed to me. You know, ignoring me in the supermarket, turning around if they see me in the aisle, and then walking the other way. Nobody gave me an answer as to why.
Okay, so when you were married, you belonged to a certain temple. We're not going to mention the name. Did you ever go to that rabbi who was your supposedly rabbi and go, why wouldn't you accept me? Like, I understand that it's a challenge for you guys too, but look at it from my point of view, and why didn't you accept me? Or you never had that conversation with them?
I don't believe I went I said it, especially, I think it's a year and a half ago, something like that, where I'd written to that particular rabbi and said, it's been a long time, you know, I'd like to at least please come in. I asked him a few things, and I, you know, basically nothing, like cricket.
What compels you to stay in your present neighborhood if this is going on? Is it because of the children and their schooling? So once they're done, you want to hightail out of here to a different community? Okay, I understand.
Do you think your daughters will be judged when it comes, because I know them, they're an amazing human being. They are very open about you. They're not, some kids will shy away of who their parent is or be embarrassed. I know that your two girls, the oldest one and the younger one, that I know personally are very proud of you. They love and adore you. But they are in the Orthodox community. Do you think they'll have a hard time getting married in the Orthodox community because of it? And does that bother you? Not bother you, but does it make you feel sometimes question what you did because of the kids, or no?
I question because of the kids, but not because of that. Because if those are the kind of people that would be potential mechutanim, I don't want that.
I don't want to.
Right.
Those are people that harbor hatred, and who are judgmental, and those are not character traits that I want to,
I saw firsthand how proud your children are of you. Because I went with one of our producers to see you on a panel, speaking at an LGBTQ panel in West Hollywood. And we saw how proud your daughter was of you in the audience. And that made me feel really good to see that connection that you have with her.
Thank God. I think I'm pretty well connected with my kids. And that's not been easy for them. This has been a really challenging time, and being in a community where the schools have had issues. I'm allowed on the campuses now and stuff like that, but it was difficult in the beginning, and so certainly they have. Not my oldest, no, but my kids have suffered because of community attitudes and behaviors. I've seen it. I've seen the kids look at my kids and the way that they look at them when they see them with me. But I say we shelve the rest of the children comments, discussion, and go on to something else. Can we do that?
Yeah. Before we close out, I wanted to, will close out for us. I wanted to ask you if you could tell us some of the misconceptions about transgender men and women.
The misconceptions, wow, there's a bunch. One is that somebody else, especially somebody who is not trans, can understand what a trans person is feeling or thinking, and to know what their experience is like. And that pretty much goes for every difference, walk a mile in my shoes. Unless you have been directly related in some way, you don't know what it's like. So just ask. Questions are always welcome, especially if they're done with curiosity instead of hatred. Another misconception that we're all the same, that we all come to this concept of being trans in the same way, because it's not. A lot of us find the binary, which is the difference between male and female genders, to be meaningful, right? I very much identify with masculinity, and the male gender that America chose, right? It's not the same across the countries, but not everybody does. Not everybody wants to be what's considered male or female, and that's those are non-binary people. That there's something wrong with us. Third misconception, that there's something wrong in our head, that we can't think properly, that we don't feel properly, that we need therapy just to fix us, and if we had enough therapy, then we'd be fixed. Fourth misconception, that sexual abuse somehow causes this. It doesn't. If that were true, then 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 6 boys would be trans, because that's the numbers for sexual abuse.
I think that's a very good point that you brought up, because a lot of people do feel that there is a high correlation between child abuse and people that come out being gay or lesbian. So I'm glad that you touched upon that just now.
Thank you.
I want to ask you, what would you tell, because one of the reasons I wanted to do this show with Karen is to bring more awareness to our community. I don't think it will help. I really don't. I hope it does. But I'm going to do whatever I can to bring more awareness to it. What would you tell a kid, not a kid, but teenagers, young adults that are watching it, that are in the Orthodox community? How would you do it different now that you're kind of, you already made that step? Where can they get help? Would you tell them not to get married? Because I know for a fact of like at least 3 other people that are much younger that I know for a fact came out before, but they, under peer pressure, got married. And I know that it's like a, trend that's going to crash at one point or another. They happen to be gay, not transgender. What would you tell these people, and how do you think we can make a change? Because obviously gay is not going anywhere. Transgenders are not going anywhere. In the secular world, it's very well accepted. How can we bring the Orthodox, because you know what, I noticed that there is a lot of people that are gay that decided to come out and not get married. And the community is not accepting them. They start hating Judaism. And it's not because they have something against God. They have something against the community. And instead of bringing them in or creating a temple where everybody is accepted, they leave the communities altogether. They leave Judaism. Some of them convert to different religion because they feel accepted. What can we do, and what could we do? Like in this platform, what do you think we can do as leaders of the communities? How can leaders in the community?
What do you think will help?
Right. What do you think will help, and how can we fix it so we don't lose all these children leaving the community?
So many questions you asked.
Yes.
I don't think I can answer them in all 4 minutes. But what can we do to help? We can do the opposite of what I read they're trying to do. I don't remember who said it. It was from the Aguda or something like that. It was, don't talk to queer people. Don't invite them into your home. Don't make any sort of relationship with them whatsoever, because if you do, you will see their humanity, and then you will feel sympathetic and you will feel bad for what we're doing, which is kicking them out. So I say do the opposite, because v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, right? Sorry, it stumps me that one human being could disregard another human being, especially one who is not hurting other people. So talk to the queer people. Have a panel at the shul on a regular basis of queer people so you can ask them questions, get to know them, go up to them, say, I'm glad you're here. Can I ask you a question? if you're curious. If not, just say, I'm glad you're here, and I'm sorry if somebody else was not nice to you. If you make a mistake and you misgender somebody by saying the wrong pronoun maybe, or their old name, just say, I'm really sorry, and then go on. We're people, we're human, we have feelings, and we want to be involved. We want to be there. I know so many queers who left religiousness because of that. And
well,
that's,
at least
what's the worst thing? They're 1 out of 613 mitzvahs they're possibly not doing. Possibly.
So, you know, Joshua, it's so ironic that you're here today because, as you know, until today, in more than half the states in the U.S., it was legal to fire an employee solely based on their sexual orientation.
It's a historic
identity and for being transgender. And today, that changed when the Supreme Court passed that what is considered a landmark vote to extend the Civil Act law of 1964.
ironic today.
This is a new ruling. It will protect people who identify as gay, transgender, and bisexual from being discriminated solely based on sexual orientation and gender identity within the workplace. So I thought it was kind of, it's weird that out of all days, it came out today in the news and you are here today with us. And I was so happy to read that. And I know at least in the secular world, things are improving. They're making it a little bit easier, you know, which is, people think it's easy. It's much harder to come out than to just follow like a sheep and do what everybody accepts from you.
And know that you have 2 friends right here in your village.
Right. And I will always be proud that you are my friend. You will be invited to my house for Friday night, and I'm not going to tell my kids not to talk to you because I'm really proud of who you are. I'm proud of the children that you raised. They are amazing human beings. And I'm very proud of who you are. And I know it takes a lot for you to come here. It's not easy. But thank you for coming, because I think for you being here, maybe it's a step to have, at least I'm not going to stop here to make it work and hopefully create a platform for kids to come and talk.
And maybe somebody that didn't even say hi to you before, now after hearing your story and your journey, will start with baby steps and at least acknowledge you and say hello. When you're shopping for your vegetables in the market where everybody shops, a nice hello would come handy.
Karen, I love you so much. You know why I love her? Because Karen is one person, Karen, that you never, even before, Karen doesn't judge anyone. Karen loves everybody for who they are. That's what makes you beautiful, Karen.
You too. And, you know, I think Joshua also is studying to be a therapist, correct?
Yes.
Social worker.
Social worker. Joshua, when you're done with school, maybe we can open a center. Really, I'm not joking. A small center, it can even be a room where we can, for place for people to come in the Orthodox community that are afraid to come and come out. And so they'll be accepted, hopefully, and you can be one of the counselors there.
From your mouth to God's ears. That is something I'm working towards regularly.
You have our support.
Amen. Thank you. You asked me about resources, about what a young person can do if they don't have anybody to talk to. Do we have a minute to do that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so if they live in Los Angeles, they can always call the LGBTQ Center in Los Angeles. They will help in many aspects. There are lots of services available for young gay people, young queer people, transgender people in Los Angeles County. If they are Jewish and need connection to other Jews, There is Q International, Jewish Queer International in Los Angeles, but they have programming all over the place. I run with a few others the Orthodox LGBTQ group. Are you getting that?
Yes.
Yes. You know what we'll do? We'll
Go online.
We'll post this for our followers on our website and on Facebook, Etty, so that people can have some resources. We'll post these numbers and names of the organizations.
I can put some links on your face on that post that you make if you want.
Oh, absolutely great. We'll contact you and we'll do that.
Good.
Josh, thank you again so much for coming here today.
Thank you for having me. For real. It's monumental.
And both Karen and I really love and adore you. And this is not going to be our last interview with you. As things progress and as you finish school and hopefully open that center, we are going to be on another show, and hopefully we'll get some things moving so the community will see how hurtful they are. Maybe hopefully with this, just like Karen said, with this interview, they'll see the impact on the other side, and maybe that will change some things. So again, thank you so much for coming. We would like to thank all our followers for listening to this episode. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Yentas in the City, and hit that bell button for notification when we post. Please remember, you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Yentas in the City. You could also write us at dearyentas@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you and answer your letter on our weekly advice column. We'd like to thank Shimi Photography and Sharon for being and helping us behind the scene to bring this episode to you. Thank you so much.